Some people rock and some people roll. Some will make you giggle right down to your soul. So talk to the world and introduce them to you. And look at me now, I'm all Barbara and you. You gotta take a step inside the shoes of another. Get to know your neighbor, get to know one another. So talk to the world and introduce them to you. And look at me now, I'm on Barbara and you.
And as I mentioned earlier, my next guest is Jacob Vitali, who is the, I'm not sure I get your title right. City editor, is that the correct, for the Sentinel Enterprise?
You got it.
Oh, good. I love it when that happens. And may I call you Jake?
Of course.
You may call me Barbara, too.
All right, Barbara.
And I'm delighted to meet you, and I can't believe I haven't met you yet. Because you're kind of, at first I thought this was a new job, but you've been on the job for almost a year.
Yeah, I took over, I think April 30th was my first day. So I took over from Cliff Clark, who was a stalwart in the community here, and Cliff did a great job. He's a friend of mine, and I still give him a phone call once in a while when I need background information on something. So it's been a learning curve, but I love what I do.
Well, I was surprised that you're such a young person to be in such an important position. How'd you pull that off?
I don't know the answer to that one. Yeah, I'm 25 years old. I was about a year into working for the Lowell Sun, which is the Sentinel sister paper, about 40 minutes east of here. And when Cliff was leaving, they wanted to stay within the organization, and they asked me.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I hear you're doing a great job. I've heard it from several sources. But I don't want to necessarily start on a negative point, but there's a lot of people in the Fitchburg area, the whole north central area, that miss having our local newspaper be more local.
I totally understand that. And, I think one thing that, is important to understand is the Sentinel, like every, major newspaper that's out there right now, is dealing with challenges. And I think that we still continue to serve our community quite well with the content that we do offer. Danielle Ray does a fantastic job really writing, feature stories, stuff that you're not going to find elsewhere. And we've continued to add to our coverage, too. Cheryl Cudahy does a great job. She, authors a number of short stories every week. She, does the community calendar. She puts together the TV briefings for, FATV here. And,
I have to interrupt you because I've been interviewed by both of those ladies, and they are wonderful reporters. They're doing a great job.
And they've been fantastic resources for me as well. I learned, so much from them, and the institutional knowledge that they offer is just tremendous.
So let me back you up a little bit. Is this what you intended for your career?
I'm not sure. When I was in college, I studied journalism. I was editor of my college newspaper at Mass College of Liberal Arts, but I thought if I was ever going to be an editor, it would probably be after maybe 10 years of experience and, maybe somewhere, a little bit more rural than Fitchburg is.
But I said I was surprised when I read how young you are to be in that position. And how long has the Lowell Sun been around?
The Lowell Sun and the Fitchburg Sentinel date back to the 1800s. So
both of them.
So these are really historic, institutions in our communities.
Right. And I mean, many of us can remember when the Sentinel was in the building next door to where we are right now, and there was a lot of activity going on. We remember some of the regular reporters, and I actually had done some freelance articles for them way back when, and we missed that. But I was reading what Sally Crager wrote about you and some of your comments about how the community can really stay involved even though we don't have a building right here that's where the paper's being produced. Mm-hmm. So what do you expect from the community? How can the community help enhance the Sentinel?
Well, I think my goal is to really make sure that our newspaper reflects the community well. And that comes in a number of ways. We want people to engage with us. What stories are you seeing out there that maybe we're not covering that would be important to cover? What type of coverage is the paper missing that you feel we need to get back to? I heard a lot about the fact that we weren't covering Fitchburg City Hall, and now we have Anna Griffin, who's a reporter with 20 years of experience, back on the City Hall beat. And so, I am really receptive and open to engaging with people. We also, believe that we're a community paper too. If you're at an event and, maybe you got some nice pictures from the event, feel free to send those to us. If you have something that's going on in the community, don't be afraid to drop us a note, or, if you want to write a press release and send it our way for consideration. We're, always happy to see those types of things.
Well, you're too young to know that the newspaper business has changed drastically in recent years, in my lifetime for sure. And so I hear what you're saying. You want the community to be involved, and I don't think people necessarily think in terms of, oh, I'm going to call the newspaper and tell them, or I'm going to send them an editorial or letter to the editor, which you had said something when Sally Craig had interviewed you about people's misconceptions about letters to the editor. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I said, remember that there's another person on the other end, and I do read those letters, and so be nice. I'm a person. I have feelings like everybody else.
But also, it's important that they write a sensible letter.
Right. We want if you're writing a letter to the editor, for it to be grounded in fact. We don't expect everybody to agree with maybe the position a newspaper puts forward in an editorial or on the opinion page, but we want opinions that are rooted in fact, and we also hope that people will make an effort to use punctuation and proper grammar when they send us a letter.
Yeah, I've had several letters to the editor over the years that have been published, but I was surprised when I took a writing class many years ago to hear that newspapers don't accept all letters to the editor. They're not obligated to accept it, but if it meets certain criteria, but it's also an opinion piece usually.
Right, and I do take the newspaper's commitment to upholding good, trustworthy information very seriously. So if something's not rooted in fact, it's not going to get published.
Yeah. Now, how much overlap is there between the Sentinel and Enterprise and the Lowell Sun?
Yeah, the two papers really do a nice job working together. They're sister publications, and we share some leadership. Alana Melanson, who's actually my counterpart at the Lowell Sun, was a beat reporter here at the Sentinel for the first 8 years of her career. And so she's another great resource that we can lean on for some institutional knowledge. And we're always trying to share resources when we can too. So if there's something happening here that we might not be able to cover with one reporter and a couple very talented freelancers, maybe we'll try to regionalize a story they're doing, or maybe we'll borrow some staff from them when it makes sense.
When you say one reporter, poor Danielle, she's busy all the time, isn't she?
She is busy all the time, and she does a great job managing it.
She does, and Cheryl as well. And what other towns does the Sentinel and Enterprise cover?
Yeah, we cover Fitchburg, Leominster, Lancaster, Lunenburg, Shirley, Townsend, Westminster, and Ashburnham. I hope that's all. I got all of them right there.
You will forgive you if you forgot one or two.
Ashby as well. We can't forget Ashby.
Okay. And what do you consider breaking news?
Yeah, we think breaking news really comes down to something that is happening right now, something very pressing. So a major development out of City Hall, maybe a car accident that just happened that's going to tie up traffic for the next few hours.
And what happens if we get if you get a call that there's breaking news going on in Fitchburg?
Sometimes I cover those stories myself, or other times I got to pick up the phone, I got to call one of my reporters, and I got to say, hey, I need you to jump on this for me. And they are great about that. They take that commitment very seriously.
And while you're saying they're sister newspapers with the little sun, the activity's all in Lowell, it seems. You know, like the breaking news from Fitchburg, it's Lowell that's going to get the call.
Well, can you clarify what you mean by that?
No. I'm kidding you. I mean, everything stems out of Lowell. That's where people would call you, or you would get a call and say, hey, something's happening in Fitchburg. So you got to call your Fitchburg people and say, get on it right away.
Right. I mean, you know, I am the city editor for the Sentinel Enterprise. So priority number one is the Sentinel.
Right. We like hearing that. When I talk about all the changes, why are newspapers still important?
I think newspapers are important because, you know, journalists really understand where to look for information, and they know the questions to ask. They know the places to go. And these are, you know, things that maybe everyday people don't know how to access themselves, or, you know, I mean, everybody's busy. You know, if you got a family, you've got kids, you've got other commitments. And so it's our job to go and find the information for you and make sure we're providing you valuable information, because, you know, when we see the emergence of social media, there's a lot of great things that come out of social media. That's where the Me Too movement started, and some of the uprisings in the Middle East, the Arab Spring. You know, these are social media movements, but social media also doesn't have the same sort of checks and balances. So anybody can go on there and say anything, whether or not it's grounded in reality or not.
Mm-hmm. And what's the ratio now between newspapers being delivered to homes versus everybody reading their paper online?
I think that the print publication still plays a big role in our operation. You know, certainly the digital side is something where we've been investing and trying to grow our efforts, but you know, I think that print newspapers will always exist in some form or another.
But you've noticed the numbers have gone down?
I'm not privy to circulation numbers.
Okay. Now, take somebody like myself, which you and I talked earlier. You and I are, I was surprised when you said it, we're people who don't like change.
Right.
I still like to see the newspaper. I like to work the jumble. I like to work the crossword puzzle. And right or wrong, the obituary notices are something that you need to know. And it doesn't seem as easy to me to go online and look these things up as opposed to having my newspaper I can read.
Right. That's why we want to meet people where they're at and deliver content in whatever way makes sense for people. So for some people, the online product works just great, but there are people who still love the print edition. I am a little bit old school. I like vinyl records and print newspapers, and yeah, so I see the value in having both.
Okay, for the consumer, cost-wise, how does that work out? You said you're not privy to all the circulation news, but you're paid for your newspaper to be delivered versus paying to look everything up online.
I don't know offhand what the number is, what the price would be to subscribe to the print edition with home delivery, but I do know that you can start a trial for the Sentinel. You can get 3 months for $1, and then after that it's $14.99 a month. So it's about the same price as paying for Netflix or Spotify if you're interested in our online product. And it's not just news that happens here. We bring in news from the national level. President Biden has his State of the Union tonight when we're doing this interview, and so we'll bring in some national coverage on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Now you said you studied journalism. Do you write articles yourself?
I do. I wrote a story just in the past week about Monty Tech and how they have been named in a federal civil rights complaint over the admissions practices. And there are advocates, Senator Cronin, and a coalition of school faculty, about 20 different groups that believe that for equitable vocational education, you need to have a lottery-based system like charter schools are using instead of this sort of ranked selective criteria.
So to write this article, you interviewed a lot of people and did what I do, more or less?
Yep, you gotta know who to call, and then it was a very data-driven piece too. So there are 2 tech schools in the state, for example, that are using lottery-based processes. What do the numbers look like at those 2 schools as opposed to the other 26 in the state that are using sort of this selective criteria that ranks students on grades, disciplinary history, a guidance counselor recommendation, and in some cases even a character interview?
So that sounds like quite a challenge for you, putting that together.
It all comes down to time management, because at the same time too, I'm also working to make sure that our reporters have the tools they need to get their job done in the day, thinking about stories that are coming up, what can we do to really make sure that coverage is adequate. So it really comes down to time management.
What is a typical day like for you?
The thing I love about journalism is there are no 2 days that are exactly alike. And I guess that's sort of a paradox, because I was telling you off the air, I'm also somebody who doesn't like change. But in journalism, there is something different every single day. The places you're going, the people you're interacting with. My day usually starts about 8 a.m. and sometimes it wraps at 8 p.m., sometimes it wraps at 2 in the morning. So long days, but you do it because you love it.
You just reminded me when you said you don't like change, and I agree, I don't like change. But you said you've had the same breakfast every day for how many years?
I think it's like 5 years now. It started when I was in college. I have a Greek yogurt in the morning with a cup of either green tea or Earl Grey hot in the Captain Picard tradition.
But sometimes I find when I get into a situation like that, I reach a day when I never want that food again. Right now it's bananas. I've eaten so many bananas since I had some health issue, and I don't ever want to eat another banana again. Anyway, you're going to stick with your routines.
I'm going to stick with my routines. I guess I'm superstitious in a sense. If you find something that works, you don't want to mess with it.
If you could make some changes in the newspaper industry, what would you make?
Yeah, I think the biggest change I would really make is that I think that sometimes people bet against print publications and thinking that they're not going to be viable for the long term. That's not the way I view it personally. And I think that, maybe take a short-term loss in order to make that money in the long term. And so really investing in the number of reporters that are in a city and really investing in the quality of product too, and making sure people have, access to the resources they need. The one thing that, I'm really excited about is that, so I've been on the job for 10 months. I have the same staff that I started with 10 months ago. And I know that in newsrooms, turnover is quite common.
And so that's a positive that you have the same staff.
I think it speaks really great to the team that's putting this paper together 7 days a week.
Well, we know Danielle gets a lot of the credit.
She does. I'll be the first to admit it.
And you mentioned then you have other freelancers that you can call on, but they're not officially part of working officially for the newspaper. Is that correct?
That's correct. So they work by assignment.
Okay.
And then we do also have, I sort of call him a part-time reporter because if he has his arms stretched out, he's being pulled one way and the other way, and Shane Rhodes. And Shane Rhodes is a great young journalist who splits his time between the Lowell Sun and the Fitchburg Sentinel, and actually the Neshoba Valley Voice, which is a weekly newspaper that we have for like Pepperell, Groton, Townsend, Ayer, Shirley.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that name, but I do know several other people that we both know that write articles occasionally, and you might want to tell us about some of those.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about Cheryl Cudahy. She is phenomenal. She writes short stories. She writes feature stories. She had a great front page feature story today about an Ashburnham dietitian who's sharing her skills with the world through, I think it's the Stevens Memorial Library. We also have Sarah Arnold, who came on board, and Sarah had a great story in today's paper about the Fitchburg Housing Authority and shedding a light on a mother of 2 children who feels that she was wrongfully evicted by the FHA. So Sarah Arnold does that, and then Anna Griffin has come on board recently and is going to start helping us beef up our City Hall coverage, especially as we head into what's going to be an election cycle here in Fitchburg.
Okay, and a couple other names that come to my mind is Sally Cragen.
Yes.
Who I just marvel at how Sally does everything she does, and she's a marvelous writer. So she has some regular columns, doesn't she?
Every week, Sally does the Pet of the Week. So if you're looking to adopt a furry friend or maybe a nice singing bird, Sally is the person to go to there. And then she also alternates weeks. So one week it's Pet Talk. If you got a question about, why does my dog bark at a thunderstorm, Sally can get you the answer on that. And then in the other week, she writes this new series we started over the summer called Tales from Tri-Town. And she's trying to combine information she's finding from the historical societies and lending some modern day voices too, and just kind of giving people a chance to express themselves in the paper. And Sally's involved with everything too. It seems.
She's totally amazing.
So she's always sending us news about what the Stratton players have going on and different, artsy workshops in the area. So she's great. And then her cousin, Reverend Will D'Arcangelo, writes the Hopeful Thinking column, which you can read every Saturday. And
did you notice Will D'Arcangelo wrote and sings my theme song at the beginning of the show? Did you notice?
I did notice that. And,
yes.
Will, every time I talk to Will, there is a different talent that he seems to have.
He's also an amazing person. And the theme song's been around so long, but several people tell me that I've had 3 original songs written over the many years I've been doing this. And I had told Will some years ago that I needed a new song. One day he called me up and he was so excited. He said, I got it, it just came to me. And he's singing to me over the phone. And then he put that piece together, and we haven't changed it in a long time because everybody seems to like it. But again, now you've mentioned some people that are important to the paper, and they're basically volunteering their time.
We do pay them by assignment.
Oh, you do? Okay, I didn't know that.
And I would also be remiss if I didn't mention Alan Arsenault, who is one of our photographers, and Gary Fournier, who is a retired firefighter from Leominster, who also helps us, especially when there's breaking news. So Alan and Gary are additions that we've added since October, and these guys really know how to work a camera.
And these are people in addition to those 10 people that work on your staff.
Yes.
Wow, you got a lot going on.
We do. We always have something cooking.
Well, that's good to know. Approaching your year anniversary, are there any particular goals, any obstacles that you feel good about that you've overcome? What can we expect in the future with the Sentinel Enterprise?
The one thing I really want to do is I really want to be a community partner. I think that, the newspaper is a historic institution. I said at the start of this conversation, I want a newspaper that reflects the community. And I think for the first, part of my stint, it was really spent on the administrative and technical side of things. Really learning what it takes, because there was a steep learning curve for me, especially taking over for somebody who, was so well respected in the community. And I really want to make myself accessible to people, be present at events, and really be a face that people know.
And I think that's very important. And yet I also think you probably have a problem that I share, because we live in a community that there are so many worthwhile charities, so many good organizations, like you just heard my interview with the people from Luck, and it makes you think, well, let's help them out. But there's just so many good organizations, the Salvation Army. Like I mentioned, we have a wonderful Chamber of Commerce here. How do you decide who to pick you to give your attention to?
I think you got to just make an effort to form relationships with everybody, and maybe some people aren't as receptive at first of having a relationship with you, and you just got to keep trying. But I think that it's not an active decision on our part to sit there and pick and choose which organization, because like you said, there's so many great organizations. When you say that, there's a litany of them that just come to mind for me.
There are. And do you encourage these types of organizations to get in touch with the newspaper?
Absolutely. My contact information is on our website. Get in contact with us. Email news@sentinelenterprise.com. I see everything that comes through that mailbox. If you know Danielle or Cheryl, feel free to reach out to them. They're great. Get in contact with us. We want to hear from people.
We actually have Danielle booked for an upcoming show. I don't remember the date right now, but it's not too far from now. And we invited Cheryl, but Cheryl doesn't like to be on camera. I've known her for a long time, and she said, "Oh, boy, here goes Barbara again, trying to get me to come on her show." And of course, I like being on camera, so I don't understand people who are shy about it. But they're, like you said, both very wonderful writers. What do you think are some misconceptions people have about the Sentinel Enterprise today?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is because we don't have the same number of staff that we used to have when we had the office right next to us, is that people think that we don't care or we're not invested in the local community. That couldn't be farther from the truth. If you have a chance to meet the people who work on this paper, it is a 7-day-a-week job, and we are always thinking about stories we can write that are going to serve the community well, ways that we can do things better, and it is a team effort. So I think that, I understand people's frustration with, the newspaper maybe not being, wall-to-wall coverage of everything that happens, but we are forced to sometimes make tough choices about, what are the most important stories to cover. And, I think that our staff just does an incredible job serving the community well.
Well, and I keep up the good work, and I'm going to tell you something that you don't know.
Okay.
The Sentinel is partly responsible for me doing this TV show. Pat Gogan, who wrote for the Sentinel many years ago, and it was when I had been on the old television show To Tell the Truth. And when the Sentinel, or when somebody locally knew that I was on that TV show, and they sent Pat Gogan to interview me about being on To Tell the Truth, which you're too young to even remember the show, but anyway, I was a good liar. I was an imposter on To Tell the Truth. But it came out in the article that Pat Gogan wrote that I had done some modeling and some TV work when I lived in Cincinnati, mostly commercial work, and I got a call from the Montechusett Cable, or it wasn't even Montechusett Cable then, I forget what it was called. But anyway, I got the call because of Pat Gogan's article about me in the newspaper, and they said, "Would you like to start doing a TV show?" And of course, that was the days before there even was public access. So I worked directly for the cable company, and over the years ended up being here working for FATV, and I love it.
That's awesome.
So the Sentinel holds a special place in my heart. And I wish you continued success, and keep us posted on what's going on.
We absolutely will.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I want to remind the viewers who we have on next week, because if you look at your calendar, next week is Valentine's Day. And when we did our Christmas musical, many of the people who were performers then said, "Let's do another Valentine's show." Well, we did it one year because we couldn't do a Christmas show because of the snow. And we ended up doing Valentine musical. But now that we're pre-taping shows, a lot of the musicians can't be around in the evening or in the afternoon to pre-tape the show. So we are going to do a mini Valentine's show. When we did the Christmas musical, I told all these musicians and singers that they were all welcome to come on a regular show at any time. So for this week coming up, we have Eddie Trexler, and many of you know Eddie because he's been on my Christmas show for many years. And I'm not sure if he's going to be a solo, but they're going to do a couple of songs, but we're also going to learn more about them in my usual interview style. And Paul and Paula Luria, who were not able to be with us for the Christmas show, they're elated to come and do some love songs for us for Valentine's Day. So that's next week. I'll be here. I hope you will too. This is Barbara Foster saying good night and God bless you.